working every
Yeah.
Preparing to live stream the meeting.
Wow. I think we need to get into it quickly though.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. We can get into it quickly. Okay, let's turn this around. Right. Oh my God, here I am live on YouTube with Jane. Jane, can you hear me?
I'm watching you through my headphones. Is that how I should be hearing you?
Yeah, but I'm watching us on YouTube because I'm trying to show the world of Instagram.
Wow. Okay,
wait, let's see if I press play.
Unbelievable. Bea and I are very excited that well, this is all Bea's work. It's a bit like
oh my God, it works.
The royal we, but
okay. Right, great. Okay, just a sec. So, okay, people watching this ridiculous story on Instagram. Oh, my dog needs to get in the show now. Come on,
well, Coco is normally a major part of all our podcasts. She's very wise when it comes to raising children, to be fair.
Anyway, now she's licking my toast crumbs. Goodness.
Okay. Of course.
So if you're trying to find us, we are in YouTube. It's the Jane Bea Show. It's on the channel Bea Marshall. This is what we look like today. And I'm going to get on with it. Okay, let's just send that. Share that to stories. Done. So okay, and now I'm going to turn my phone to airplane. So what I don't understand is, okay, I want to be able to see chat comments.
Well, let's just get going, shall we?
Let's get going, absolutely.
It's very annoying for people who are like, but I got my tea.
Yes, I know. So I have got Helen's message in front of me. Shall I share?
Yeah, go for it.
So today I need to be able to look at you, Jane, because I don't quite understand the technology.
Okay, so we're going to focus in on screens and screen time because we've had this amazing message from one of our followers, which Bea's going to read, but we know this from both of the messages we are individually getting, that screen usage and screen time is causing parents a lot of confusion and distress and stress in some cases. So we thought, based on what Bea's going to read out now from Helen, we would make that our topic for you today.
Absolutely. And hopefully, if you're joining us live, you can ask questions in the comments, and hopefully we're going to be able to see those questions. This is the bit of technology that we're still not sure on, but hopefully we're going to be able to see those questions and answer them. Okay, so I need to just, I'm so sorry. Right, okay, I've got it.
Oh, that's so that's Bea on. I'm so sorry about this. We're going to get really good at this, but bear with us because this is going to be a brilliant. You are really going to want to hear this today. We just are learning as everyone is at the moment. Oh, look at Coco.
Look at
She
Coco.
melts my heart. Yeah, we're learning as we go because we didn't want to not be here for you. So that's why we've jumped on. We're live streaming on YouTube. But we haven't done this before. So this is going to be a very, very valuable podcast, promise. But just bear with, please. All right, are we okay to just dive into it?
I am going to read Helen's message. So
brilliant.
I've just caught up with you and Jane on YouTube. It was so lovely to see and hear you both again. I listened to all your podcasts last year and you make a great duo. Could you give me some advice and insight into how to manage, for want of a better word, older children and screens? I have 3 boys, 16, 12 and 12, and a daughter who is 9. We have 1 games console, 1 iPad, and my boys have their own mobiles, and I struggle with the amount of time they want to be on them. They argue about who goes on and when and for how long each of them has or doesn't have. I fear if I let them have free reign, it would be non-stop. And I said that Jane and I are very happy to talk about this today. And I just said, out of interest, what is your concern about screens being a non-stop entity? And the reason I asked that is because quite often parents talk to me about screens and they're not really sure what their personal fears or concerns are. They've been bombarded by messages about screens, on social media, in the news, by other parenting, coaches and things. And they're not actually necessarily sure what their own personal concerns are. So that's why I asked that. And Helen replies that my fear is how addicted they are to them. I've put time limits on their phones and iPad, but I'm always asked for more, and it feels uncomfortable to me to be in control of it. But also, if there are no limits, they will use them all day. I guess my worry is that they are numbing themselves to a deeper issue, perhaps. The games console is in the living room, so one child is on there or watching TV. I think hearing you talk of your, sorry, I just need to find my, I think hearing you talk of your teenage boys and that they are mostly in their rooms, I wondered how it works in your house. And then she just goes on to talk about when she'll be able to catch up with this. So it seems to me that it's about screens and technology in general. It's about fears around that. It's around limits and control, the discomfort that you as a parent might feel in that situation. It sounds like it's also about the resources that families have and sharing those. There's concerns around different ages. So there's a lot for us to talk about. And you and I have never really talked about screens particularly, but we think coming into this that we're not necessarily on exactly the same page. Although I am in the midst of it and I feel like I don't always know which page I am on with it, because some days I am on the page of throwing my children's screens and consoles out of the window and telling them that they're never allowed to go on it again and cancelling our internet contract. So
yeah.
So I don't, I want to start from this place of saying, I'm not, anything I talk about today, anything that I talk about today, this is very much a work in progress for me. I'm working this out every day pretty much with myself, with my boys, because for me, the challenges around screens is not just related to my boys, it's related to my relationship with screens. Hugely related, that actually, I would say, is my biggest discomfort, is in some ways that how can I even expect my boys to manage self-control and all that kind of stuff around screens when I struggle. So I just want to be very transparent about it at the beginning of this, because sometimes I can feel completely relaxed around how we do screens, and other times, like I said earlier, I just want to get rid of it all, become completely off grid, never look at a phone or a computer ever again, and raise my children that way.
Yeah. Makes sense. Completely makes sense. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been, so what I recall is that we did it, I think it was like the beginning of a podcast episode that we did where we talked about it, because you'd found an article or some research online that had said screens are good. And at that, this is going back a really long time ago now. Yeah, that's what we explored. And it's actually, we always say this, it's so helpful what you just said, but this is why we work together on these, because we're often saying similar stuff, maybe from a different point in our lives. But so my son has grown up, he's 29. But I know myself, one of the things, probably the reason why I'm really keen on us exploring this and doing something about it is echoing what Bea just said, which is I really struggle sometimes to not be on my phone. And I'm very aware of it, but I still struggle with it. And of course, particularly at the moment where, although like Bea, we've got plenty of work to do, I'm sure, I can give myself very legitimate reasons to be on a screen. And I'm aware that if I'm struggling with this as an adult, then a 6-year-old is definitely going to be struggling with it. And so I think it is something that I don't feel comfortable to just kind of let go. And but at the same time, I would never want to make a parent feel that they're in any way deficient because of screens, because I really struggled when Joseph was young. He only had an Xbox, but boy, oh boy, did that cause problems, because he quickly got into it, and then getting him off it all the time was a major problem in our lives.
It's getting children off screens can be, I think, one of the hardest parts of parenting at the moment. When I say at the moment, I'm not talking specifically about lockdown, actually. When I say at the moment, I'm talking culturally. This, it's 2020. Technology is everywhere. Most children this is my understanding of talking to other parents, most children get their first mobile phone when they start going to secondary school, because they, you know, are suddenly traveling on the bus or walking to school and things like that. And then of course, once a child's got a mobile phone, they've got Snapchat and, you know, WhatsApp and all these other things. It's and then you've got PlayStations, Xboxes, Wii's, I don't know, there's all sorts of things. And I think what is very important to be aware of with all of this technology is that the people who make the technology and the people that make the applications and the games and things like that, it is in their best interest to design a product that keeps you coming back for more. And I think that's, I mean, one of the things that I've chosen to do with my boys, and whenever I come to something that I can't work out like how to handle it as a parent, I come back to the two what I feel are the most essential principles of yes parenting. One is to find a yes to joy, peace, and connection, but that has to be for all of us. There's not permissive parenting, like yes, if you're happy with that, go ahead, kind of thing. And the other is to find a yes to needs. Like, what are the unmet needs being met in whatever the situation is? And with screens, I actually have let go, although I don't always feel like this. Today I feel like this. Today I feel confident to say I have let go of any expectation that we are going to get to a point where screens are no longer an issue for any one of us in this household. You know, I've let go of that because that was weighing me down. For me, having that expectation, and sometimes I slip into that expectation again. I just feel like these screens shouldn't be this much of an issue. They shouldn't be dominating our lives. You know, when it's dinner time and I tell you there's 10 minutes till tea, you should be able to walk away from your screen and not say, oh, Mum, I can't, I'm in the middle, you know, like all of that comes out of me. And I think all of that comes out of a lot of parents. But I will come back to that yes to joy, peace, and connection. And for me, that is about ongoing conversation with my boys. And when I say ongoing conversation, I am talking about my personal challenges with my relationship with screens. I don't even need a legitimate excuse to pick up my phone. I am in such a habit of, you know, I walk past my phone, I pick it up, I auto check Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. You know, it's not even coming from a place of, oh, I better just check if, you know, that email's come in. It's just habitual. So I will talk to them about the challenges that I have with my own screen use. I will talk to them about the emotional response I have to their screen use and how I perceive it impacting our family. And I do that using, so when I talk to my boys, I avoid ever saying, you know, when you do this, it makes me feel. I would say, you know, when you are unable to join us for food because you're in the middle of a game, I notice that I feel da 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 da. It's not that they're making me feel anything. I'm just recognizing I feel frustrated. I would like the connection time around. I'll talk, and this is what I'll say to them. I really want the connection time around our meals. I want for us to have an opportunity to hang out together. You know, I also realize that it's important to me to feel appreciated and acknowledged when I've made a meal. You know, so I have these conversations with them and they have these conversations back with me. Now, I don't know what it's like in other families, whether other people's teenagers are also engaging in those conversations, because my boys will come to me and say, I feel frustrated because I am bored on my screen, but I just don't know what else to do. Or my youngest son, he's 14, he came to me a couple of weeks ago and he said, I just feel a bit out of control because he said, I understand about what happens with dopamine when I'm playing these games, and I feel like I have no power, the dopamine is stronger. And I just said, yeah, like you're right. Like, you know, so for me right now, the yes for us to screens and technology is this ongoing conversation that is about me sharing my experience, them sharing their experience. And so it's not hidden, but we do have limits within our household. So there are parental limits. The internet goes off at a certain time and then it comes back on at a certain time. And I am open to negotiation around that. You know, for example, the other day, I was in bed, getting ready to go to sleep, and Pete came to me and he said, he's nearly 16, and he and his girlfriend Chloe have been together for about 9 months now, which I think, you know, when you're 15, 16, you've been together 9 months and suddenly there's this lockdown, that's tough. And he was about 10 at night and he said, we really want to watch a movie together. Would you extend my internet so we can do that? And I just said, yeah. I just thought, wow, how lovely that you guys have had this idea to watch a movie together. And, you know, so we chatted about that. We chatted about what movie they might be watching. And I said, well, how long do you think you want the internet extended for? He said 2 hours. Oh, fine. So I have an app and I just extended the internet for 2 hours. And that felt like a really, you know, I didn't feel any discomfort around extending the internet because that just felt really lovely, even though we'd been on it for hours. So that's very much how I'm handling it in our household on a good day. But there are also days where I'm just like, I just want to get rid of all the screens.
Yeah. And I think it's that reality that there are going to be days like that, you know, it's more about, for me, I suppose, how can we sit with and cope with our discomfort around this? Because in an ideal world, which there's a world, that's it, there's a world. You know, there's going to be times when we binge on our phones. I know I do, definitely. I have to give myself excuses for it, but I'm flipping good at that. I'm excellent. And it's all work related. I'm not sure filming the squirrel and sharing it this morning was, but there you go. Yeah, it's knowing that the more we can check our feelings about it, then the more that we can then go into our children's world and have these little conversations, because that's what they need. They need us to have emotional conversations with them, like Bee's describing, about what it actually feels like to not be able to get yourself off your phone, off your laptop, whatever it is, because that's really what's going on. I believe is that, you know, so much of it, I know I can only really talk about myself because sadly I have no children at home now, but I observed this in my son. I mean, I really did, that it's just a way of blocking out the world. That's not necessarily the intention when we get on it, but once we're on it, we're kind of on it and in it, and we completely disconnect from the external world, but also our internal world. So when you're on a screen, you are not noticing your own emotions unless you get really, you know, about a post, hopefully not. Or maybe there was a beautiful one I saw today, which of course I've now instantly forgotten, that I thought, yes. But generally speaking, when we're on screens, the whole point of them, and as Bea says, you know, the people who create all these things, they do all the magic behind the scenes that I don't know if the right word is code it, but they code it in a certain way. Everything is there to keep you, it's like a supermarket, you know, they don't put things randomly in a supermarket because it looks pretty. They do a lot of psychology behind it. They put things at a certain level. They have lead items. It's the same with anything you are accessing on a screen. And they have studied it, and they continue to study it at a forensic level, because I mean, obviously not when you're playing a game, but then the more you play the game, then you need to buy the next game. But anything else is interspersed with adverts, and you know, it's always about selling. Everything is about selling when you drill down on it. So they're going to put a lot of time and energy into ways of chemically and emotionally keeping us on a screen. So you're not exaggerating in your minds how hard this is for yourselves and for your children. and the kind of relief there is of being on a screen and no longer feeling the irritation or the overwhelm of the other people in your home, and maybe the irritation and overwhelm, maybe sadness, maybe loss in yourselves. And it's the same for the children and the young people.
Absolutely. I think in terms of the lockdown at the moment, what's particularly challenging is there is huge limitation on what else kids can do. You know, I mean, when I talked to my son about, you know, possibilities for what he might do when he was saying he felt bored on his screen, and you know, they all just seemed, well, I couldn't think of many things, to be honest. I was struggling to think of things, and I've asked other people, like, you know, what kind of things are your teens doing? I've noticed a huge difference between girls and boys. So I know this session isn't completely about teens, but I noticed in Helen's original message that we started this session with, her concern was with her older boys. Obviously I've got teens, so that's what's relevant for me. But, you know, I've asked a few people, like, you know, well, what are your teens doing? Parents of teen girls, their girls are doing all sorts of things, like baking, creating games in the garden, reading, like, oh, and I don't want to stereotype with gender. This is just me talking to people and just noticing. I'm sure that there are kids, boys, who are doing these things, and girls will be doing what the boys are doing. But the parents of boys are really noticing that, you know, the boys, you know, generally just really want to be on their screens. So it is then hard, because I've said, well, you know, what else do you think they might do? And other parents are coming up with the same loss of ideas as me. I mean, I kind of, and also I remember back to when I was a kid, Mum used to say, you know, for goodness sake, it's such a lovely day out there. Get out of the house and go and do something. And I hated it. I absolutely hate. I mean, obviously I wasn't on screens because we didn't have them back then, but I hated being told what I should be doing with my time and how I should be valuing the fact that the sun was shining. And, you know, and you know, I'm kind of aware that so much of what I bring when I have my days where I do feel like I just want to throw the screens out the window and cut off our internet, it's coming from my personal discomfort. Like, that's the thing it's coming from. And a lot of that discomfort is either rooted in how I'm feeling because of my own personal relationship with screens, or my fears for them. And I think for me, I'm just at a place where I kind of think, this is just my boy's journey. This is my boy's journey. And I actually, you know, I just think I don't want to be a perfect parent. The whole, you know, the perfect parent is unattainable anyway. You know, I just want to do my best. And actually, if that means that my boys and I are living in a relatively peaceful way, I mean, okay, occasionally they have hormonal days and they might feel a bit mardy and grumpy, but, you know, when I look at our family as a whole, you know, when I look at us over the course of a week, for example, rather than, I think as parents, we can have a habit of just looking at this 1 hour in particular, or this one moment, rather than looking across the week. But if I look at us across the week, you know, I'm not dealing with slamming doors and teenagers telling me to fuck off and the kind of things I was doing as a teenager. You know, I'm dealing with teenagers who are helpful, who, you know, will not necessarily every meal, but will sit and eat a meal with me and we'll have a conversation, who joined in with the back garden community barbecue that we had the other week, who, you know, will joke around with me sometimes, and not all the time because they're teenagers and actually I'm not the person they really want to hang around with. But in the grand scheme of things, my teenagers are, you know, they are engaged and open to conversation, and, you know, I don't get banished from their rooms and things like that. So for me, that, when I look across a week, I think actually this is okay right now. This isn't perfect. This isn't perfect at all. I'd love it if, you know, they brought down a book and lay on the sofa and read a book for several hours. Like, you know, how delightful and idyllic. But that's just, you know, that's not who my boys are. I don't even do that very often.
No,
so
I'd love to. So we have a question here from Laura. Thank you, Laura, so much. And she says, my 5-year-old has a meltdown every time I try and do the schoolwork that has been set by her teacher. I give her options. I sit with her and help her. She refuses to do anything and I get angry. Well, that sounds sadly quite familiar, Laura, from I'm sure things B and I have heard. The thing is that the children, they don't want to be doing their schoolwork online, a lot of them. Some of them do. Some of them are actually enjoying it, liking it, whatever, or they just want to get it done, or there's many, many different reasons why children will do the stuff online. But for many children, and I mean, your child is only 5, she's a baby. So for her to be sitting and doing her learning, which hopefully normally is quite interactive in the classroom, probably feels really weird and really uncomfortable. And also they, you know, sometimes young children, they just don't like seeing somebody they familiar in a different setting. It's like, but you know, that's my teacher who should be in my classroom. Or so it's really important to be with how she feels about it. So not at the time when you're trying to get her on the screen to do the schoolwork, which must be incredibly stressful. But you know, little chats at other times. Does it feel a bit weird to be seeing Mrs. or Mr. whoever it is teaching you online? Is that a bit? What's that like? So doing lots of little emotions-based conversations away from the screens, because for whatever reason she is finding it overwhelming. She doesn't like this process. It's very uncomfortable for her. So yeah, having little emotions-based chats and then asking her any ideas she's got, anything that she might find helpful to try again. You know, if you're very wedded to her doing this stuff, if you're not that bothered because she's only 5 and you know, then maybe think about, well, let's have a week off, or you know, because I know different schools have got very different expectations of children. And it's about, again, it's about how comfortable am I just saying, do you know what, my child's 5, we're going to just do our own thing, they're 5.
yeah. I mean, children, well, humans, but children especially, they are learning all the time, no matter what they're doing. And a stressed, anxious, frustrated brain is not a brain that can learn. So my personal take on this, and when I read the that comment by Laura, it sounded to me like it wasn't necessarily the teacher being online, but literally just like the teacher had set work to do. I think what I would do is I would just focus on doing stuff that your child is interested in. So if that's Play-Doh or painting or paddling pool or making potions in the garden or looking at insects together, you know, at the park, or blowing dandelion heads, or turning the furniture in the lounge into some kind of den, or you know, whatever it is, or snuggling up and reading her favorite books, or putting on music and dancing, I would focus on just doing those things, and her brain in that environment will be relaxed, enjoying itself. She will be learning so much in those activities rather than experiencing this stressful experience where her brain won't be learning. And as well as the fact that she'll be learning loads, she'll be having all these incredible needs for connection being met, needs for contribution. If she's, you know, if she wants to share ideas, can we do this, can we do that? And that is how I would that's how I would go about that. My sister is parenting with her husband. They're both ex-teachers, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and she's just said, you know, this is a blip in the grand scheme of their education, and so we are just going to enjoy ourselves. And you know, I think that's right. It really is, even if the kids don't go back to school till September, this 6-month period or whatever it will have been, it's such a small blip. And I think far more important for that blip to be full of connection, joy, peace, exploration, curiosity, laughter, than that blip to be full of, you know, her frustration, her stress, your anger in response. So that would be my way of handling it.
Laura's come back and she said they are expected to send some work to the teacher every week, otherwise I wouldn't bother pursuing it.
Oh, well, in that, if I was the parent, in that case, I would still go ahead and do all the things that they're interested in, and then I would create like a I don't know, online scrapbook or something, so that you can, you know, say, we didn't manage to do the work that you set, but we did spend the afternoon looking at bugs, and here are the bugs that we found, and this is what we noticed. What's the teacher going to do? Come around and beat you up with a baseball bat?
That's what I've been saying to parents. No, I mean, this is what I've been finding, is that some parents, a lot of parents are messaging me. I had one parent, she said, oh, my 4-year-old has, even though he's in preschool, he has to attend something online, because I mean, it's coming from a really beautiful place. The preschool wants to keep the connection going, but the 4-year-old doesn't like it. He doesn't like seeing the other children and his teacher online. He just doesn't like it. He wants to see them where they belong in the setting. Well, that's what I'm wondering is his big dislike around it. He really doesn't like it. So I've been advising parents to write really, as you would, kind emails to the teachers, who of course they're maybe getting top-down pressure from the leaders, you know, and the leaders and all the rest of it, that we've got to keep this going. I'm seeing I saw a post on it's anyway a press release, I think it was, saying that they're going to bring however many hundreds of thousands of teachers out of retirement for when the children go back to school, to make sure that the vulnerable children get, you know, extra help with their education. That's not what they're going to need. They're going to need lots of very calm, kind people. And the fear with this, when you are under so much pressure, Laura, which therefore means that, of course, you carry that into this interaction, is that your child is going to really go off education. She is going to just start having this association with learning. And especially when you're doing your best to support her learning, whatever you try and do in the future around supporting her homework potentially is going to be at risk. So it's writing a really kind email, very thankful for all the hard work that all the educators are doing. But as Bea says, you know, we've decided in this period just to foster our child's love of learning and to follow her interests. And, you know, here's some pictures of the learning we've done today. And that, honestly,
for example, if you bake cupcakes together or biscuits, the weighing and the measuring is maths. The reading, the recipe is, well, obviously reading, but it's also English. The mixing and everything, and talking about how the mixture changes from, you know, being the uncooked mixture to being this kind of solid, risen thing, like how that happens, that's science. You know, if she then decorates the cupcakes, that's art. You know, like you can do that with every single, if you want to. I'm not saying you should, but if you want to, you can make every single activity that your daughter or son, for anyone else watching, is choosing to do. And you can find all of those academic subjects within it. So if you go on a bug hunt, you've got geography, you've got science, you've got like observational things related to art potentially. You might kind of create a story about it, you know, like we're going on a bear hunt, but it could be we're going on a bug hunt. You know, you're bringing in English, you might be counting the bugs or how many legs they've got and learning that, oh God, all insects have 6 legs, didn't notice that before. There is just the most phenomenal amount of academic learning within everything that we're doing all the time. I think because my boys' educational journey has been one of predominantly home education. And part of that journey as a parent has often been to explain to people who say, yes, but what about this and what about that? Been to explain to them how my boys, have been learning all the time. And my eldest son chose to go into school at the end of Y9, and having had, apart from a very small amount of time in primary school in Y5, he hadn't had any other formal education, but his teachers could not believe what he brought to the classroom. They couldn't believe how quickly he caught up. And what was wonderful was that every day that he was in school was a day that he was there because he wanted to be there. He's gutted that his GCSEs have been cancelled because he's worked so hard for them. And my younger son, he's just recently started wanting to have more formal education, and so he's having some private tutoring sessions. But again, each of the maths, English and science tutors, each of them just says it's incredible what he already knows. Almost as if it's surprising that you can learn stuff without sitting in a classroom. So, sorry, Coco clearly wants to steal the show.
It's like, right, when is it my turn to talk? Like, you two women, you're just going on and on. When's the dog's turn? Dogs have opinions.
So yes, and also I think we can link this back into screens. One of the things that I did with my boys, kind of before really their screen use became way more about kind of playing games to a level that I couldn't engage in, I used to be on the screens kind of with them, not necessarily actually like playing the game, although sometimes I did play the games with them, but I'd sit with them and we'd chat about what they were doing, whether it was Minecraft or a YouTube video or whatever, and I would just ask questions like, so which is your favorite character, or what is it you're trying to do now, and do you find this hard or do you find this easy? And my sister, who I mentioned earlier, she's been using the iPad a lot. Her eldest son, my 5-year-old nephew, he loves drawing, and they've found these amazing illustration tutorials. So he sits with his 3-year-old brother who just loves to learn from him. It's so cute. The 5-year-old sits, he's doing the illustration tutorials off the iPad. He's then teaching his little brother how to do it. My sister's, she's there and she's helping them get what they need for it. And then once they've finished, she sits and they talk about what they've drawn, and they might make up stories and things. So when you let yourself step away from what is probably quite a rigid set of, please could your child do these exercises or activities or however they're presenting it, when you step away from that and you start just actually allowing yourself to have this expansive experience of what's right in front of you, probably you'll find that there's phenomenal learning opportunities going on. And because your child is interested in what they're doing, they'll actually be really taking it on board far more than doing an educational task that they're not interested in.
Great. So this
ends the sermon.
Yeah. This might be a good time to just chat about what we are offering to parents at the moment, yes, and what we always offer. So Bea, over to you.
So I'm not offering anything unique to this time. Both the things that there are 3 things that I offer. One is the Yes Parenting Digital Pack, which is an online resource full of videos, and every video has subtitles and a transcript, and there are also some audio downloads, and it's an incredible resource for supporting your journey as a respectful, compassionate and kind parent. So that's the Yes Parenting Digital Pack, and that currently is available for only £47. The other aspect of the work I do is the one-to-one work. So that's working with EFT, emotional freedom technique, also known as tapping. It's a form of energy therapy. So both Jane and I work with energy therapies in the way that we work with our clients around trauma. So I use EFT. So I offer one-to-one sessions, and those one-to-one sessions are supplemented with unlimited WhatsApp support between sessions. And you can also access that unlimited WhatsApp support as a standalone service as well. So all the information is going to be underneath this video for you if you want to click through to buy the Yes Parenting Digital Pack, or to find out more about working with me in a one-to-one way. That information is going to be below, as is Jane's information. Go for it, Jane. What do you offer?
So the two main things I'm offering at the moment is I put together a program very specific at the current time it's called Crisis to Calm Parents Coaching Program, which is very much about lockdown. It's got a module on screens. It's got a module on exactly what we've been talking about, you know, learning with your child at home, and it can be literally anything. And that's now going to be online, and then there will be every 3 weeks there'll be a live Q&A, so you can watch it as much as you want, and then we can all jump on a call together and you can get your questions answered live. And then, yes, like Bea, I'm a coach. I work with parents who they know what they want to be like as a parent. I think we all set off on this journey in a way, but they're struggling to deliver on what they absolutely definitely know they want to do. So yeah, I coach people all over the world, as does Bea, you know, in that way.
Using the wonders of technology, because let's remember that there are so many aspects of technology that are amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to coach, you know, my clients in Malaysia and Australia and America if I didn't have this. And and that's such a great point. You know, there are amazing things about technology. It's just sitting in that space with the emotions and the feelings about coming off it and limiting it. That's the trick, really, and it sure ain't easy.
Absolutely. So okay, let's share some practical tips. And I think, you know, it would be good to share our practical tips specifically in relationship to screens and technology, because that is, you know, what this session has been about. And I'm not sure how I can't really remember what we've talked about, because, you know, we have these conversations and I know that our conversations are brilliant, but then I get to the end and I'm like, well, I don't really know exactly what we said. So I can't remember if we talked about the practicalities. So let's make sure that our 2 tips each are practical tips related to technology and screens, rather than related to anything else. So after you, Jane.
Okay, so number one, something that Bea and I we've mentioned is check your usage of screens. What are you modeling around your children? So not to have a go at yourself, but just be curious if you can track any patterns about how you are using screens and what it feels like for you to come off a screen. So almost do it like a bit of a trial. Okay, at the end of this, I'm going to make myself come off my screen. What does it feel like? Okay, because that will give you a heads up on exactly what your child is feeling like. And then the other thing is to make sure that you have little chats about this, not when they're on the screens, because that's the time when they're absorbed. You're maybe going to be really irritating. And just like, you know, as Bea and I were saying before, just little bite-sized mentions of, God, I realize I found it really hard today. And if it's a younger child, then, you know, naming the feelings, the emotions there are about not being able to have more time on the screen, or what it felt like when we had to put the screens away. So very emotions-based, simple, but emotions-based conversations, so that they can start to connect with that rather than this person is making this happen.
And I would just add to each of those top tips, because with the first one, Jane said, like, you know, not to beat yourself up or judge yourself. I am very aware that one of my screen habits is being on my screen when I get into bed, and it being one of the first things, looking at my phone is one of the first things I do when I wake up. I know that habit does not support me. I know that I feel so much better when I don't do that. despite the fact that I'm aware of that and I see that, I'm not changing it. Like, I could change it, but actually it would be so hard. And it just, so right now I'm not changing it. I see it, I observe it. I'm not beating myself up about it. I'm just like, okay, my time will come when my phone will be out my bedroom. And I know that that's best practice. I'm not here trying to suggest, oh, it's fine. I know it's not fine, but it just is what it is. And it's fine for you to go, God, yeah, actually, I pick my phone up every 5 minutes. It is what it is. You know, this aspect of noticing. And on the second tip that Jane shared is, please try and avoid any of those conversations happening at meal times. That was a real big learning thing for me. I realized, Coco thinks this is important too. I realized that because often meal times are actually one of the opportunities where I really get to sit and chat to my boys, I was then using that time to chat about these sorts of things. And then I realized, like, oh my God, this is meant to be a time of connection. What I'm doing is bringing these kind of challenging and uncomfortable experiences or emotions into this space. So keep those sorts of conversations, whether it's related to screens or anything, keep them out of the meal table or the meal time. Okay, so I hope you don't mind me adding those to.
No, really, especially about the meal times. I know, because the thing is, as they get older, as we both know, when they can avoid meal times, if we make them feel emotionally uncomfortable for them, guess what? They ain't going to come. And then that is really sad. That's a really sad loss.
So my first top tip would be, and this is especially if you're parenting under 10s, is as much as possible, be part of your child's screen time. You know, like we used to have family movie nights. We only stopped because as my boys got older, we no longer all could agree on movies. We just, you know, but anyway, family movie nights, sitting with your child, chatting to them about what it is they're watching or playing. Asking them if they will teach you how to play the game they're playing so that you can do it too. It may mean that actually there's a bit more screen time going on, because if you're trying to learn how to play Minecraft, that could take a while. But actually that screen time is a time of connection. And when your child is experiencing that connection with you, it will support the transition away from the screen, because they're not got that sudden wrench of the screen disappearing. Because the screen disappears, which will still be a wrench, but the connection with you should support, or could hopefully support them to move into something else. So that's my first. And I, with my boys now, I don't get to do that sitting. My boys have screens in their room, which on reflection and hindsight's a wonderful thing. I wouldn't do that again. But the trouble is now I have teenage boys with screens in their room, and I can't just say that's it, no screens in your room anymore. It's just, you know, that absolutely does not, that would be me completely having power over them. So that is my reality, and I'm no doubt learning a lot from it. But even with my boys, you know, my 14 and almost 16-year-old, you know, I go in and I still have those chats. Oh, what are you playing? Is this a first-person shooter, or is this a different type of game? So what is it that you're trying to do? Are you playing online with other people? Oh, cool. Who are you playing with? My eldest son, I don't know how many other almost 16-year-olds would do this, but he says, oh, my mum's here, and he hands his headset to me, and his mates sit and they chat to me. And I'm like, I said, do your mums come on and chat to you? Like, yeah, no, our mum's not this cool. And I kind of, I'm not a cool mum, but I just think how amazing that my eldest son is happy for me to have his headset on and chat to his friends. We chat about all sorts. They talk to me about their girlfriends. They talk to me about their studies. They talk to me about, like, they have these little in jokes with each other, which half the time I don't understand. And so then they laugh at me, and then I laugh at the fact that they're laughing at me. So, you know, that for me is what it looks like for me to be involved in my my kids' screen time. So that would be my first tip. And then my second tip is, rather than it simply being like being off your screens and doing something else, like think through or chat with your kids, like, what are the things that, you know, you can do together, whether it's like that you all enjoy, whether it's board games or baking or cooking together, or planning the meals for next week, or I don't know, different families have different things they love, whether it's jigsaw puzzles or whatever it is. But rather than expecting your child to come away from screens and then be independent and self-sufficient doing something else, and especially during this lockdown time where, you know, there aren't those breaks in your time together where you go out to go swimming or you go out to school or, you know, whatever it is, so that there are those other activities that you can all be doing together, rather than their choice being, you know, screens, or I've got to work out what to do on my own. Because I think for a lot of kids, that's actually really tricky. I find it tricky sometimes. I find it really tricky thinking, right, I don't want to be on my phone. Right, okay, right. And I don't want to be on Netflix. So what the hell shall I do? So I have a jigsaw on the go upstairs. I have my book. I'm in the middle of a sewing project. Because of the weather's been lovely, I've been able to spend time in the garden. But sometimes, even though those things exist and they're there for me, the draw to go just back on my screen for a bit is so strong. So, you know, have some of those activities around that you guys can do together. I taught my eldest son how to play gin rummy. And although he doesn't love it as much as me and hasn't wanted to play it constantly like I would love to, you know, we've had a couple of games of gin rummy and it was really great to share that with him. So that would be my second tip. Anything you want to add, Jane?
No, I think that's, you know, we could talk about this probably forever, because we've both thought about it so much. I mean, I've been thinking about it since my son got on screens, and he's 29, and that was whenever Grandpa gave him an Xbox, because bad old mummy wouldn't get him one. So he buttered Grandpa up and Grandpa made it happen. So yeah, we've been exploring this for a very long time. But, you know, the abiding thing that we'll probably end on this note is be kind to yourselves. And
to your children.
Yes. Well, one would always hope so, but
I think my personal experience is that when I'm feeling stressed about screens, I notice that's the time when I am most likely to let go of some of my kindness and respect towards them. I mean, being who I am, and the fact that, you know, I'm so intentional about how I show up as a parent, means that normally I can make sure that I'm processing that myself. But actually, I think it's really easy to take out your fears and your frustrations around the screens on your children. So that's why, sorry, I totally interrupted and I apologize, but it just felt important to say, be kind to yourself and your children.
Absolutely, would always say that. Okay, amazing. So there we go. Hopefully that's been of use to everyone, and we are excited about next week. And
yes,
questions, you know,
what do you want us to talk about?
Yeah, Helen's amazing question has come this big exploration today. So, you know,
and then Laura's question as well.
Yeah, and then Laura joining us. So we, you know, this is how we want to make it. We want to make it, what do you want from us? We spend our lives thinking about this stuff. And if you have a question, then please send it through. We will put all the links that you can find how to do that here. And yeah, this is really, we want this to be of use for you.
Yes, go ahead and underneath in the options, go ahead and subscribe to this. This is my YouTube channel, because we had a lot of technical issues trying to get on the Jane and Bea channel. But subscribe to this channel. It will mean that you'll get a notification when we go live. That won't necessarily mean you can join us then, but at least you'll know that the next episode is there and it's waiting for you. And, you know, if you are enjoying these episodes, please like them, share them, you know, tell people about them. And you can continue commenting, even if you're watching this on the replay. And, you know, I can respond to them. So, and it's been lovely to see you. And I believe it's cup of tea and a wee time now. I desperately need a wee.
Desperate for a cup of tea always, any time of the day or night.
And my husband made me a cake yesterday, so I'm going to have a slice of cake.
Don't tell me about cake. I have no cake. You are the cake torch torturer. I can't
I'm not the
bake
cake
and I don't
torturer.
yeah, but you're always telling me about cake, Bea. Like, I cannot, honestly, if we went back through the podcast, I made a such and such cake. I'm like, oh,
Really?
Quite often. Well, because yeah, it's my own fault.
Well,
I need to learn to bake, but I've had so many baking catastrophes in my life that I'm a bit
what
averse.
about putting an SOS call out to your neighbours saying, in this lockdown time, I am lacking
bring
cake.
me a cake. God, I am. Well, I'm hoping to at a very safe social distance see a friend of mine this week who's, well, I guess what he'll have to do is put the cake on my doorstep and then run away again. But he has promised to bring me fruit cake, so
perfect.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Maybe I can celebrate that with you next time, because I've got such cake envy.
Okay, right. I am going to stop the live stream now. Bye bye, everybody.
Take care. Bye.